Her daughter asked for pancakes that morning. Keisha said they were out of the mix. They weren't out of the mix. There was still half a box in the cabinet above the stove. Keisha had counted it the night before the way she counted everything, carefully with the arithmetic of someone who could not afford to be wrong. Half a box of pancake mix meant 2 more mornings. And this morning she needed it to be tomorrow's morning. She made oatmeal instead. The store-brand kind that came in the blue cylinder, the one she'd bought 3 weeks ago because it was $1.89 and it could stretch to 5 bowls if she measured right. She stirred it on the stove, added a little brown sugar because Amara was 6 and 6-year-olds didn't understand that brown sugar was a luxury now. She didn't understand it either, honestly. A year ago it wasn't. A year ago she was buying the good syrup. The kind in the glass bottle. "Mama," Amara said from the kitchen table. She was coloring. She did this every morning, sat at the table in her pajamas with the crayons spread out like they owned the place. "Can we get the orange juice that has the pulp? Because Destiny's mom always gets the pulp kind and she says it tastes like real oranges." Keisha kept her eyes on the pot. "We'll see, baby." "That means no. That means we'll see." Amara went back to her drawing. She was coloring a horse purple. Not because horses came in purple, she was 6, she knew they didn't, but because purple was her favorite color and she decided that horses should be allowed to have favorites too. Keisha loved her so much it was almost unbearable. She served the oatmeal. Sat across the table. Watched her daughter eat. Amara had her father's eyelashes. Long, unfairly long. The kind you only ever saw on children and people who didn't deserve them. Marcus had very nice eyelashes. He had not paid child support in 4 months. His phone went straight to voicemail now. He'd moved in with someone. Keisha didn't know who. She'd stopped trying to find out because trying cost energy she didn't have. She had $9 in her checking account. She had $1 in her wallet, an actual paper dollar folded in half, because she'd found it yesterday in the pocket of her winter coat when she was looking for her bus pass. Finding that dollar had felt like finding treasure. She'd actually said, "Oh thank God," out loud in the hallway of her apartment building to nobody. That's where things were. Payday was tomorrow. Friday. 26 hours away. But 26 hours was a long time when your daughter's childcare center had left you a voicemail. Not a text, an actual voicemail, which meant someone had made a deliberate choice to call. And the woman's voice on the recording was the professionally gentle voice that people use right before they say something that's going to devastate you. "Miss Tanner, this is Renee at Sunshine Learning Center. I'm calling about your account balance. We have you at $3.80 past due and our policy requires." Keisha had listened to the whole message standing in the parking lot of the hotel where she worked, in the cold, with her hands curled inside the sleeves of her jacket. Policy requires. She knew what that meant. Sunshine Learning Center was not a bad place. Renee was not a bad person. But they had a wait list 12 families long, and a policy that existed because the world was not built to accommodate people who were trying their absolute hardest and still coming up short. If she lost Amara's spot, she lost her job. If she lost her job, she lost the apartment. The apartment. 1 bedroom in Garfield Park, 3rd floor above a laundromat. The building's elevator had been broken for 3 months. The radiator knocked all night in the winter. A sound Amara had decided was a friendly ghost named Gerald who liked to check on them. Keisha had started calling it Gerald too. She kissed Amara on top of the head. She braided her hair. She walked her to school. She watched her run through the double doors without looking back. Because Amara was a kid who always ran toward things, never away from them, and Keisha stood on the sidewalk for a moment longer than she needed to. Then she went to work. She cleaned hotel rooms. 8 hours, sometimes 9. 12 rooms on a good day, 14 on a bad one, where bad meant understaffed, which was most days. She pushed a cart that squeaked on the left wheel no matter how many times maintenance said they'd fixed it. She changed sheets that smelled like other people's vacations. She scrubbed bathtubs with chemicals that had bleached the skin between her knuckles pale and dry, so dry that sometimes when she bent her fingers the skin cracked and bled a little. She wore gloves now. She'd started buying her own because the hotel's supply was always running low and she couldn't afford to take that particular gamble. The hotel was nice. Not fancy but nice. The kind of place business people stayed for conferences. There was a pool on the 4th floor. He had never been in it. Her supervisor, Denise, caught her in the hallway at noon. "Hey, corporate's doing a spot check today. Make sure your cart's stocked right." "It's stocked right." I know. I'm just..." Denise dropped her voice, looked down the hall. Also Keisha. HR called me this morning. About benefits re-enrollment. Keisha went still. Apparently if you don't re-enroll before the 15th the system drops you. Medical and everything. The 15th was 2 days ago. I know. I never got an email. I know, and I flagged it and they say they sent it to your old address. The one before you moved. The one before she moved. The apartment she'd left because the landlord raised the rent $400 with 60 days notice and she had 60 days to find somewhere cheaper and she'd found it, barely, and apparently she'd forgotten to update one single thing in the chaos of that move while also working full-time and raising a child alone. Can they fix it? Denise's face did something careful and sad. They're working on it. That's all I know right now. Keisha nodded. Push the cart. The left wheel squeaked. She did not allow herself to think about what happens when you lose your health insurance and your 6-year-old daughter gets sick and you are already $9 and one folded dollar bill away from nothing. You cannot think about all of it at once. You can only think about the next thing. The next thing was finishing room 412. At 12:31 she stopped at the quick shop on Meridian Street. She went in for water. She'd been on her feet since 6 in the morning and her throat was sandpaper and she had 44 minutes before she had to get back on the bus to pick Amara up from aftercare before the late fee kicked in. $1 per minute after 5:45, which sounds like nothing until you're counting every dollar. The quick shop smelled like old coffee and those little orange crackers they sold in 6-packs near the register. The kind of crackers that came in a cellophane sleeve and tasted like salt and desperation, but also kind of like comfort if you let yourself think about it that way. There was a teenager behind the counter. He looked maybe 17-18. Name tag said Marcus. She almost laughed because of course it did, and he was watching a video on his phone with one earbud in, which was not technically against any rules she could see posted on the wall. Keisha grabbed a water bottle from the back cooler. 99 cents. She brought it to the counter. And then she saw them. The lottery tickets. Not the big display rack. Just a small strip of scratch tickets mounted right below the register counter. The kind that hung there and caught your eye when you were paying for something else. Bright foil. Gold and red. The one at the end was called Lucky Break and it cost exactly $1. Keisha looked at it. She looked at the dollar in her wallet. She thought about Renee's voicemail. She thought about $380. She thought about how she had done everything right, finished her certification, showed up every day, moved to a cheaper apartment, clipped the coupons, skipped the orange juice with pulp. And she was still here, still $9 from zero, still watching the math refuse to add up no matter how many different ways she tried to arrange it. She thought about Amara coloring a purple horse at the kitchen table. She thought about Gerald the friendly ghost and the broken elevator and the half box of pancake mix. She looked at the ticket. She bought the ticket. Can I get that one? She pointed to Lucky Break. And just the water too. Marcus with one earbud tore the ticket off the strip, set it on the counter with the water. She gave him her last dollar and her debit card for the 99 cents. Watch the card go through. $6.01 remaining. She put the ticket in her jacket pocket and went to the corner of the store near the refrigerated case out of the way of the door. She scratched it with a quarter she found at the bottom of her bag. He did not feel hope exactly. Hope was not quite the right word for it. It was more like, she needed the sensation of trying something. The feeling of there being a chance, however small, that the next 60 seconds could be different from the 60,000 seconds before them. She scratched the first panel. 7. She scratched the second. 7. He stopped breathing. She scratched the third. 7. Below the 3 matching numbers in print so small she had to squint. $500,000. Keisha stared at it. She thought, that can't be right. She thought, I am misreading this. She thought, I need to read it again. She read it again. 7. 7. 7. $500,000. The quarter slipped out of her hand and hit the floor and she didn't hear it. She read it a third time. And then her legs started shaking and she put one hand flat on the refrigerated case to hold herself up. And the cold glass of it was the most real thing she had ever felt in her life. $100,000. She pressed the ticket against her chest with both hands. Not intentionally. Her body just did it. The way your arms find your child in the dark. She was still standing like that, eyes closed, ticket against her sternum, breathing in short shaky pulls, when the bell above the door chimed and someone walked in. His name was Desmond Holt. He was 43 years old. He was wearing a suit that cost more than Keisha's monthly rent. He had the kind of posture that people develop when they've spent 20 years walking into rooms and immediately becoming the most important person in them. He had not been inside a quick shop or any place like it in longer than he could accurately remember. He was here because his driver had taken a wrong turn and Desmond had told him to pull over so he could check the address on his phone without the motion making him nauseated, and then he'd decided he wanted a coffee and the quick shop was right there. That was the entirety of the reason. He wasn't supposed to be here. He was supposed to be 7 blocks east at the Meridian Tower, sitting down with the development group that was trying to get his firm's backing on a new mixed-use project. He was already 4 minutes late. He pushed through the door. He registered distantly that a woman was standing in the back of the store near the refrigerators with her eyes closed and her hands pressed to her chest. He registered it the way you register the details of a room when you're not really looking. Peripheral, noted, categorized, moved past. He went to the coffee machine. He filled a cup. He walked to the counter. Marcus looked up from his phone, pulled out the earbud. Just the coffee? Just the coffee. Desmond set his own phone on the counter while he dug out his wallet. He had 4 different cards and he briefly experienced the specific small annoyance of a wealthy person who cannot immediately locate the card he wants. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. A text from his assistant, Raymond, confirming that Desmond's firm had finalized the purchase of a 7-block commercial corridor in Garfield Park. A deal that had been 12 months in the making. 14 properties. Retail storefronts, 2 apartment buildings and 6 smaller business spaces including a laundromat, a dry cleaner and a quick shop on Meridian Street. This quick shop, which Desmond Holt's company now owned as of this morning. He saw the confirmation text. He felt the small, clean satisfaction of a deal closed. He picked up his coffee. He said to himself, to no one, the way people talk when they're reading something on a phone and the thought comes out a sound without meaning to, that's mine. 2 words. He meant the property, the asset, the line item on the balance sheet that now belonged to his portfolio. Keisha heard 2 words. Her eyes opened. She turned. He saw the suit. She saw the phone. She saw him standing at the counter, coffee in hand, not looking at her, not looking at anything really, just reading his phone, and she heard the words again in her own head. That's mine. And every single rational thought in her brain shorted out. Later she would try to explain it. She would try to describe the specific terror of holding a piece of paper that represents your daughter's future. Amara's college, Amara's inhaler prescription, Amara's chance to grow up in a home where the radiator worked, and hearing a man in $1,000 suit say, that's mine. He would say, I know it sounds crazy now. But in that moment it wasn't crazy. It was the most logical thing in the world. Because she knew with the bone-deep certainty of someone who has been on the wrong end of things enough times, that the world was full of men like that. Men who could take things. Men who had lawyers and connections and the particular confidence that came with never having lost anything important. Men who said that's mine and meant it. Her voice came out quiet. Shaking but quiet. Excuse me. Desmond looked up. I bought this ticket. She held it up. Still pressed between both palms but lifted now, visible. My money. My ticket. I scratched it myself. Marcus saw me. Desmond looked at the ticket. He looked at her face. He looked at Marcus. He stopped. I didn't say anything about a ticket. I heard you. I was reading a text. I was talking about the building. What building? This building. He held up his phone. My company just acquired this property. I was confirming the purchase. I said, that's mine about the store. Keisha looked at him. She looked at Marcus. Marcus was looking back and forth between them like a person watching a car accident happen in slow motion. Is that true? She asked Marcus. Marcus made a face that was trying very hard not to be a face. I wasn't really. Do you have cameras in here? Yeah. Then we look at the cameras. This is the part that nobody in the store was expecting. Not Marcus, who had been hoping this would resolve itself quickly so he could get back to his video. Not the 2 other customers who had filtered in. An older woman buying a sandwich and a man in work boots getting a Gatorade, and who were now very obviously not leaving. Not Desmond, who had not been accused of anything by anyone in a very long time and who was experiencing the unusual and deeply uncomfortable sensation of not being believed. And not Keisha, who was shaking from the inside out, who was fully aware that she might be making the worst mistake of her life, but who also physically could not, let that ticket out of her hands without being certain. Marcus pulled up the camera feed on the monitor behind the counter. Digital footage. Top-down angle. Timestamp in the corner. Everyone looked. They watched Keisha walk in. They watched her go to the cooler, pick up the water, bring it to the counter, see ticket, pause, put the water down, point at the ticket, pay with her card and her dollar bill. They watched her walk to the back of the store. They watched her scratch. They watched Desmond walk in 6 minutes later. He went straight to the coffee machine. He didn't look at the lottery ticket display. He didn't approach the counter until he was ready to pay. He paid. He picked up his coffee. He picked up his phone. His mouth moved. His eyes were on the phone screen, not on Keisha, not on the ticket, not on anything in the store. He was looking at his phone. He was talking about the building. The footage was silent, but it was clear. Everything was clear. There was no ambiguity in it. The older woman with the sandwich made a small sound. The man in work boots let out a slow breath. Keisha looked at the screen. She looked at the ticket in her hands. She looked at Desmond. He had been so sure. She had been absolutely, completely, bone-certainly sure. The shame was physical. It went through her like cold water. Her face went hot. Her eyes went stinging. She opened her mouth and then closed it because there were no words that felt adequate for what she'd just done. Publicly accused a man of stealing in front of witnesses, based on 2 words she'd misunderstood. "I'm sorry," she said. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "I thought I heard you say I'm sorry. I'm really sorry." Desmond looked at her for a moment. He thought about saying you should be more careful. He thought about saying, that was completely out of line. He had said both of those things to people before in different contexts, usually in boardrooms where someone had made an error and needed to understand the weight of it. He was good at those sentences. They came naturally. But he didn't say either of them. Because he was looking at her face. And her face was doing something he recognized. Not the embarrassment, though that was there, deep and visible. Something underneath the embarrassment. The look of someone who has been holding everything together for so long that one small thing, one misheard sentence, one moment of panic, was enough to make them come completely apart. He had seen that look before. Once. In a mirror. 22 years ago. Desmond Holt grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment in Cleveland with his mother and his grandmother and his younger sister Bria. His mother worked at a dry cleaner. His grandmother watched Bria during the day and crocheted blankets at night that she sold at the church sale every December. The blankets went for $15 each. She made 3 or 4 a year. That was not enough. It was never enough. His mother knew it, his grandmother knew it, and Desmond by the time he was 9 knew it too. He did not know it the way adults know things with language and context. He knew it the way children know things. In the body, in the feeling that there was a specific kind of heaviness in his house that other houses didn't have. The weight of counting. The weight of almost enough, not quite enough, we'll figure it out. His mother's name was Patricia. Patricia Holt had the best handwriting Desmond had ever seen in his life. She wrote in looping, careful cursive on everything, grocery lists, birthday cards, the labels on the jars she used to organize the kitchen cabinets. She had perfect handwriting because she had wanted once to be a calligrapher. She had taken one class at the community center when she was 19 and loved it. Then life arrived as it tends to do and calligraphy became the thing she used to want to do. She worked at the dry cleaner for 11 years. She never called in sick. She never asked for a raise because every time she thought about doing it, there was some reason not to. Business was slow, the owner seemed stressed, it wasn't a good time. There was always a reason for it not to be a good time. The week Desmond left for college. A scholarship, the first real impossible thing he had ever done. She stood in the parking lot of his dorm and hugged him for a long time. "You don't owe us anything," she said. "Mama, I mean it. You don't look back at us and feel guilty. You go forward. That's all you owe me." He did go forward. He went forward so hard and so fast and for so long that somewhere in his 30s he looked up and realized he could not actually remember the last time he'd looked back. Not really. His mother was alive. He called her on Sundays. He'd bought her a house. A real house, 3 bedrooms, a yard in a suburb of Cleveland where the schools were good and the streets were quiet. She called it too big and then immediately filled every room with plants. He supported her. He supported Bria. He wrote checks to 3 different foundations. But he had not, in longer than he could calculate, sat across from someone who was living the life his mother had lived and actually been present for it. Actually seen it. He had learned a very specific form of looking away. Not cruelty. Not indifference. Something more insidious than both. A kind of managed distance that let him feel like he was doing enough, giving enough, while keeping the part of him that remembered safe and unreachable behind glass. He looked at Keisha. She was trying to compose herself. Standing up very straight. Jaw set. Eyes bright with tears that she clearly had no intention of shedding in front of him. The older woman had quietly paid for her sandwich and left. The man in work boots was still there, watching, arms crossed, not quite ready to stand down. Desmond did something he almost never did. He made a decision without calculating it first. "Can I ask you something?" he said. Keisha looked at him. Still guarded. The ticket still against her chest. "When you thought I was going to take that ticket, the first thing you said wasn't about the money." She waited. "You said, 'I scratched this myself.' You didn't say how much it was worth. You didn't say what you'd do with it." He paused. "What will you do with it?" She stared at him. "Why does that matter?" "I don't know yet," he said honestly. A long moment. Then Keisha said, "Pay what I owe on my daughter's childcare so she doesn't lose her spot and I don't lose my job." A beat. "And then figure out the rest. One thing at a time." Desmond nodded. "How much do you owe?" $380. He didn't react to that. He didn't let himself react because he knew what his reaction would look like and he knew it would be wrong. That flicker of perspective, that particular thing that happened when you had so much money that smaller amounts became abstract, incomprehensible as a crisis. He'd done that before. Let the number register on his face. He'd seen people flinch when it did. "What's your name?" he asked. "Keisha Tanner." Desmond Holt. He didn't offer his hand. "My mother worked at a dry cleaner in Cleveland for 11 years and I didn't find out she'd never asked for a raise until after I'd already built a company worth $40 million. Keisha looked at him. "I'm not telling you that because I want credit for it," he said. "I'm telling you because I want you to know that I know what that looks like. What you're carrying. I'm not going to pretend I don't." The man in work boots quietly put down his Gatorade and left. Marcus pretended to straighten things on the counter. Keisha and Desmond stood in the quick shop on Meridian Street, in the fluorescent light, in the smell of old coffee and cellophane. "You own this store," she said finally. It wasn't hostile. It was just fact-finding. "As of this morning, yes." "And you're going to do what with it?" "With all of them." Pause. The plan was mixed-use redevelopment. Retail residential. The kind of thing that takes a neighborhood and makes it attractive to people who can afford attractive. She looked at him steadily. "And the people already in it?" He held her gaze. "That's actually a question I've been asked to stop asking by 3 different members of my development team. But you keep asking it." "I keep asking it." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at the ticket. She took a breath. "I need to go pick up my daughter," she said. "I know." He reached into his jacket. Took out a card. Set it on the counter between them. "If you want to talk. Not about business. Just, if you want to talk." She looked at the card. He picked it up. She didn't say anything else. She put on her jacket, picked up her water, still sitting unopened on the counter, and walked toward the door. She stopped. "Desmond." He looked up. "Your mother. The calligraphy. Did she ever go back to it?" He blinked. "How did you said she had the best handwriting." A small, tired, genuine smile. "I guessed." He pushed through the door. The bell chimed. He stood there in the empty store and felt something move in his chest that he hadn't felt in a very long time. The specific sensation of being seen by someone who had absolutely no reason to look at him carefully. Marcus put his earbud back in. Desmond picked up his cold coffee. He didn't go to the meeting. 3 days later, Keisha's phone rang at 7:52 in the morning. She was in the middle of braiding Amara's hair. Amara was eating cereal. They had the pancakes this morning. She'd made them, the real kind from the half box, because she had driven to the lottery claims office the day after the quick shop and the money was real and they were having pancakes. She looked at the screen. Unknown number. Chicago area code. She almost let it go. She was almost certain it was spam. She answered it. "Miss Tanner." "Yes." "This is Renee from Sunshine Learning Center." Keisha went still. Amara looked up from her cereal, picked up on something in her mother's posture the way children always do, and then went back to her cereal because the pancakes were more interesting. "I'm calling because we received a payment on your account yesterday. A full payment, the past due balance and 3 months forward." Keisha's hand tightened on the phone. I only sent the $380 I owed. Yes ma'am you did. This was a separate payment. From a different source. We have it down as an anonymous donation specifically designated for your account. Silence. An anonymous, yes ma'am. We actually receive these occasionally. People who want to help specific families but prefer not to be identified. Pause. Your account is fully current. Amara's spot is secured through the end of the school year. Keisha pressed her lips together very hard. Are you all right, Miss Tanner? Yes. Her voice was not entirely steady. Thank you for calling. She sat down slowly at the kitchen table. Amara said, Mama, you look like you're going to cry. I'm fine, baby. Is it a happy cry or a sad cry? Keisha looked at her daughter. At the cereal. At the plates from the pancakes still on the counter. At the drawing on the refrigerator. The purple horse that Amara had finished and declared her best work. Happy, she said. It's a happy one. She called Desmond's number that afternoon. He answered on the second ring. I know it was you, she said. Pause. You're guessing. 3 months forward. You did the math on how long I'd need to stabilize. Another pause. Longer. You should have called me first, she said. I would have said no. That's why I didn't call. She wanted to be angry. She had been for about 40 minutes that morning, the hot and righteous anger of someone whose pride had just been handled by someone else without permission. And then she thought about Amara's spot. About the end of the school year. About the specific unnameable relief of not having that to hold anymore. I don't want to be a charity case, she said. That's not what this is. Then what is it? He was quiet for a moment. And then he said, my mother never let anyone help her either. For 11 years she worked at a job where she was underpaid and tired, and she never once asked anyone for anything because she thought asking would cost her something. Her dignity. Her independence. Something. A beat. She was wrong. It cost her 11 years. Keisha sat with that. What do you want? She asked. Because this was the question. It was always the question. There was always something. I want to show you something, he said. Can I do that? Just come see something. You can say no to everything else. But come see this one thing. The 14 properties on Meridian Street looked different from the inside. Keisha had walked past them her whole life without registering them as a unit. As something that could be owned by one entity, could be transformed by one decision. They were just the street. The quick shop. The laundromat above which she lived. The dry cleaner. The Dominican restaurant that had the best rice she'd ever eaten. The tax prep place that opened in January and closed in April. The barber shop that had been there since before she was born. Desmond walked her through 3 of them on a Tuesday afternoon while Amara was in school. He showed her the quick shop from behind the counter, from the storage room, from the back door that opened into an alley that smelled like garbage and city and something green from the trees 2 blocks over. He showed her an empty retail space that had been a shoe store, and before that a jewelry repair place, and before that something he couldn't identify from the ghosts of signage on the wall. And then he showed her a building at the corner. 2 floors. Wide windows. This was going to be boutique retail, he said. High-end. The kind of thing that prices out the neighborhood it's supposed to improve. Was going to be. I've been rethinking the plan. She looked at the empty room. At the light coming through the windows. At the way the space felt like a held breath. Tell me something, he said. If you could do anything, not what's practical, not what makes sense given the situation. If the situation wasn't what it was. What would you do? She almost deflected. She almost said something safe. Instead she said, I'd finish my nursing degree. I started before Amara. I was 2 semesters from a clinical rotation when everything. She stopped. I was going to work in maternal health. I wanted to be the person in the room when someone had a baby without support. The person that told them they were going to be okay. Desmond nodded. There's a community health partnership program at Malcolm X College, he said. Full certification, clinical rotation, childcare covered during class hours. It runs evenings and Saturdays so you can keep working. It's funded through hospital systems and community development grants. She stared at him. It has a waiting list of 47 people. He kept staring. I sat on the board of 2 of the funding hospitals for a combined 9 years, he said. I have never once called in that particular favor. Pause. I'm calling it now. For me. Not for you. He looked around the empty room. The light through the windows. The held breath feeling of unused possibility. For whoever you're going to be when you're done. For the people you're going to be in the room for. She looked at him for a long time. She thought about her mother who had moved to Atlanta when Keisha was 21 and who called every Sunday and who still to this day asked, "Are you eating enough?" before she asked anything else. She thought about Marcus and his eyelashes and the note on the kitchen counter. She thought about the quick shop and the scratch ticket and the way she'd pressed it against her chest like it was her heart. "I have one condition," she said. "Tell me. The laundromat in my building. The one you own now. The machines have been broken on the second floor for 6 weeks. The residents have been using the first floor machines which are also half broken. The repair company keeps rescheduling." She met his eyes. "Fix it first. Before anything else. Before my spot in any program. Fix the machines for the people in that building." Desmond was quiet for a moment. "Done," he said. "By Friday. By Thursday." She nodded. She looked at the empty room one more time. "Okay," she said. "Tell me about the program. This is the part nobody shows you. This is the part that doesn't fit in a highlight reel." The program started 6 weeks later. Keisha showed up on the first night at 6 p.m. with a notebook and a pen and the particular combination of exhaustion and determination that had become her baseline state. There were 11 other students. A woman named Cecile who was 44 and had been a home aide for 18 years and was furious that she'd waited this long to formalize it. A man named Devin, she laughed a little at that, thought about the Marcus named Marcus behind the quick shop counter, who was working toward surgical tech and had 3 kids and a commute that took an hour each way. The instructor was a small woman named Dr. Aguilar who assigned 40 pages of reading before the first class and told them on night 1, "You are here because someone believed you were worth investing in. Don't disappoint either of you." Keisha wrote that down. He carried it. Month 2. Amara got an ear infection and couldn't go to childcare for 4 days. Keisha missed 2 classes. She called Desmond at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday not because she expected him to fix it but because she needed to say it out loud to someone who would understand what it cost. He didn't fix it. He just stayed on the phone. That, she realized, was not a small thing. Month 3. Her hotel supervisor Denise pulled her aside and told her corporate had flagged her reduced hours. She'd gone from full-time to 32 hours to make the class schedule work, and that there might be consequences. Keisha went home that night and sat at the kitchen table after Amara was asleep and did the new math. The lottery money carefully managed. The program stipend small but real. The reduced hours. It was tight. It was very tight. But it added up. For the first time in 18 months the math added up. Not easily. Not comfortably. But it added up. She didn't need to choose between 2 versions of not enough. There was just enough. A narrow, precarious enough that required vigilance and no emergencies, but still. She sat there for a long time. He thought, this is what people mean when they say a foothold. Not a landing. Not safety. Just a foothold. A place to press your foot while you reach for the next thing. Month 5. She got the highest score in her cohort on the pharmacology exam. Dr. Aguilar handed the tests back face down, which she always did. Keisha turned hers over and looked at the number and then looked up at the ceiling and breathed. After class, Dr. Aguilar kept her a few minutes. "You have a gift for the patient-facing stuff," she said. "The clinical communication. The way you explain procedures without making people feel like they're being processed. I've spent a lot of time on the other side of that desk." Dr. Aguilar looked at her for a moment. "I know," she said. "It shows. Not in a bad way." Month 6. Clinical rotation began. She worked in the maternity ward at Mercy Hospital on Saturday mornings. She held hands. She explained things slowly. She was in the room when a 23-year-old woman had her first baby alone. The father hadn't shown, the family was an hour away, and Keisha stood at the left side of the bed and said, "You're doing great, you're doing so well, look at that, look at what you just did," until the woman stopped looking terrified and started looking like a mother. After, she sat in the hallway outside the room and put her face in her hands for a minute. Not from sadness. From the specific, profound recognition of knowing you are exactly where you are supposed to be. He called his mother. Not just on Sundays anymore. On Tuesdays too sometimes. On random Thursdays when he thought about her and didn't try to do something useful with the thought but just called. He asked her about the calligraphy. She was quiet for a long moment when he asked. I haven't thought about that in 20 years, she said. I know. I'm sorry. What are you apologizing for? I don't know, Mama. Pause. For being so far away for so long that I stopped knowing what to ask you. She was quiet again. Then, there's a class at the community center on Wednesday afternoons. I drove past the sign 3 times before I told myself that was too old and silly. You're 63. 63-year-old women do not take calligraphy classes. Tell me why not. A long pause. I don't know. Then I'm signing you up. Desmond, I'm signing you up. Tell me you went and hated it and I'll never mention it again. But you have to go first. She went. She called him the following Thursday. I made a Christmas card, she said. With a calligraphy border. It's not very good. I want it. You want my bad Christmas card. I want your first one. He got it in the mail 10 days later. He framed it. He put it on his desk, which was the kind of desk that was not supposed to have personal items on it. He put it there anyway. He was also, quietly, doing something with the 14 properties on Meridian Street. Not the boutique retail plan. Something else. He'd brought in a community development consultant named Yvonne Marsh who had 17 years of experience in neighborhood revitalization and who had looked at his original plan with an expression of polite but devastating contempt. This is a displacement plan dressed up as development, she'd said. I know. She'd looked at him. You know. I want to do it differently. That will make significantly less money. I know that too. Then why? He'd thought about a woman pressing a scratch ticket against her chest in a quick shop. He'd thought about the way she'd asked him about his mother's calligraphy as she walked out the door, the way she'd paid attention to the detail he didn't realize he'd given her. Because someone asked me a question I didn't know the answer to, he said. And I've been thinking about it ever since. Yvonne Marsh looked at him for a long time. Okay, she said. Let's redesign the whole thing. 8 months in. She was sitting in Desmond's office. She'd been there twice now to update him on the program which he'd asked for and which she'd initially resisted because she refused to feel like a report card, when she noticed something on his desk. A framed card. Handwritten. Calligraphy. A little uneven, a little tentative. Is that my mother's? She looked at it. At the looping, careful, slightly imperfect letters. She went back, he said. Wednesday afternoon class at the community center in Cleveland. Keisha looked at the card for a moment. She's good. It's her first one. She'd kill me for framing it. Why did you? He was quiet. Because it made me realize something. He looked at the card. My mother spent 30 years not doing the thing she loved because she decided it was too late or too much or too something. And then one phone call. He paused. One person asking her a question. Keisha looked at him. I asked her a question that night at the quick shop, she said slowly. About the calligraphy. Yeah. I was walking out the door. Yeah. I'd known you for 40 minutes. I know. A beat. That's why I listened. She sat with that for a moment. Desmond. The program. She looked at him carefully. What happens after I finish? What do you actually want? Because I need you to say it. He looked back at her. I want to build something in that corner building, he said. A community health clinic. Sliding scale, no one turned away for insurance. Staffed by people who know this neighborhood because they live in it. And I want a nurse practitioner who grew up in Garfield Park to be part of the leadership team. She stared at him. I'm 2 semesters from a clinical rotation. I know. Which is why I said want to build, not building. You're planning around my timeline. I'm planning around the right timeline. He leaned forward slightly. Is that? Stop, she said. Let me think. She thought. She thought about Amara and her purple horses. She thought about Gerald the friendly ghost and the broken elevator and the laundromat machines that had in fact been fixed by Thursday. She checked in disbelief and they all worked. She thought about the 23-year-old in the maternity ward who'd looked terrified and then looked like a mother. She thought about a quick shop and $1 and a penny hitting the floor. I have conditions, she said. I'd be worried if you didn't. The clinic doesn't have a waiting list. If someone shows up, they're seen. Period. Agreed. The staff are paid a living wage. Not non-profit wages. Actual living wages. Agreed. And the laundromat in my building gets a permanent maintenance contract. Not a repair when it breaks situation. Preventive maintenance. He almost smiled. The laundromat. The people in that building do their laundry, Desmond. It matters. I know. Agreed. She nodded once. Firmly. The nod of a woman who had just made a decision that she intended to keep. Okay, she said. Yeah. He picked up her bag. Stood up. And then she did something she hadn't done in the 8 months she'd been sitting in this man's office talking about futures. She offered her hand first. Not to accept something. Not to close a deal that someone else had designed. To start one. He shook it. She was 7 by the time Keisha finished the program. She could read chapter books now and had opinions about them, real opinions, the kind where she'd sigh and say, the ending was too fast, like she'd been reading for 50 years. She'd moved on from crayons to colored pencils, which she treated with a seriousness that Keisha found deeply and quietly hilarious. He still had honey. She didn't mention honey to her friends. She called Desmond Mr. Desmond, which was what Keisha had told her to call him and which Amara had complied with for about 2 weeks before abbreviating it to Mr. D, which she then further abbreviated to simply D, which she used in the tone of someone addressing a peer. D, look at this drawing. D, did you know that horses can sleep standing up? D, Mama said you grew up in Cleveland. Is it like here? He'd answered all of these with the particular genuine attention of a person who had learned, late but not too late, how to actually be present. The clinic opened in the spring. Not a grand opening. Not a ribbon cutting with press. A quiet opening on a Tuesday morning with a handwritten sign on the door. Calligraphy, Patricia Holtz, she'd made it as a gift, that said, Meridian Community Health Center here for the neighborhood. All of it. 12 patients came in the first day. Keisha was there for the first one. A woman, 51, who had not seen a doctor in 4 years because she couldn't afford the copay and didn't have time to navigate the insurance system and had just stopped going. She sat in the exam room and told Keisha this matter-of-factly, with the same kind of stripped-down honesty that Keisha recognized because she had lived in that honesty herself. I should have come sooner, the woman said. You came now, Keisha said. That's what matters. After the woman left, Keisha stood in the hallway for a moment. She thought, this is it. This is the room. This is exactly the room I wanted to be in. 1 year after the clinic opened, Keisha brought something to Desmond's office. Not his fancy office in the tower. The small office he'd started keeping in the Meridian building on the 2nd floor above the clinic, which was cluttered with development plans and community meeting notes and, for reasons she'd never quite understood, a small cactus that he claimed he didn't remember buying. She set it on the desk. Frame. Small. Oak-colored. Inside it, behind glass, a scratch ticket. Faded foil. 3 sevens barely visible under the scratching. The number below them no longer legible. But you knew what it said if you knew the story. I had them verify it first, she said. Then I claimed the prize. And then I kept the ticket because I didn't know what for. Pause. Now I know what for. Desmond looked at it. He looked at her. You framed it, he said. You framed your mother's card. Fair. I want you to have it. She held his eyes. Not because you helped me. Because that ticket is the reason I know that the distance between the worst day of your life and the rest of it can be nothing. A scratch. A misheard sentence. 2 words in the wrong direction that accidentally pointed somewhere true. He picked up the frame. He looked at the ghost of gold foil. He thought about a woman in a quick shop with her eyes closed and her hands against her chest. He thought about his mother at a kitchen table in Cleveland doing homework beside a window that wouldn't close. He thought about a community center calligraphy class. He thought about fixed laundry machines. He thought about 12 patients on a Tuesday morning. He set the frame down on his desk. Next to his mother's card. Keisha. Yeah. Thank you. She looked at him. Really looked. The way she had a year and a half ago as she walked out of a quick shop as a small parting gift, a detail noticed and returned. Desmond, she said. Your mother. The calligraphy. What about it? Does she know about the clinic? Pause. She knows I've been working on something. Bring her to see it, Keisha said. She should see what her card is hanging in front of. He was quiet. Yeah, he said finally. She should. 2 years after a woman spent her last dollar on a scratch ticket in a convenience store on Meridian Street. Amara Tanner, age 8, won the second-grade art contest at her school. The winning piece was a large drawing. She'd moved on from colored pencils to watercolor, of a horse. Purple. With a gold star on its chest. Because she explained to her teacher, that was the horse's favorite color and its favorite shape, and animals should be allowed to have favorites. He brought it home and showed Keisha. Keisha put it on the refrigerator. Then she took it down. Then she bought a frame. She was not, she would tell you, a person who framed things. But some things deserve to be protected. Some things deserve to be hung on the wall and looked at carefully on ordinary mornings so you don't forget. There is a clinic on Meridian Street. There is a laundromat in the building above it where all the machines work. There is a second grader who talks to butterflies and thinks horses should have favorites. There is a 64-year-old woman in Cleveland who makes calligraphy cards now for every occasion she can think of, and several she invents. There is a man who calls his mother on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Sundays and sometimes just because. And there is a scratch ticket in a frame on a desk in a small office on the second floor of a building on Meridian Street. 3 sevens you can barely see anymore. A number you can't read. But you know what it said. $500,000. Or, depending on how you count it, something worth considerably more. A number you can't read. But you know what it said. $500,000. Or, depending on how you count it, something worth considerably more.